Hi, I'm Tim Brick, and I'm representing the organization of the Arroyo Seco. So glad that you joined us this evening. This is really a big issue coming up right now, and it really needs to get more attention. And so that's what we're trying to do here is to spread the word about this very important project that's going to affect the future of the Arroyo Seco. And this meeting tonight really is going to be as the screen says, let's restore the Arroyo Seco. And it's really a critique of the Arroyo Seco water reuse project, which is a project that Pasadena and South Pasadena are pursuing. And they're reaching a critical phase at this point in the project. And then the phase of the project that they're now in is that they're open for scoping the environmental impact report, which they have to do because of the lawsuit that was filed by Clara Solis and the Save San Pasqual crowd, who are going to be represented here tonight. Clara couldn't come, but Mark's going to present on behalf of them. So we have several presenters who have a different perspective, and we'll add different kinds of thoughts and such like that. And then we want to have a lot of time at the end to let people ask questions and to try to show you where you can be most effective in terms of changing the program. Because we've got to do something to really change this project, or it'll be pretty devastating to specific parts of the Arroyo, as well as to the long-term goals that many of us have to restore the character of the Arroyo Seco. Wonderful part of the Arroyo Seco. It's a critical transition area of the Arroyo Seco. Above this area, the Arroyo Seco, when it comes out of the mountains, basically goes directly south for about 5 or 6 miles until it reaches the San Rafael Bridge. And at this point, at the San Rafael Bridge, it begins to turn towards the west to go to downtown Los Angeles. So it's a very important spot in terms of the wildlife corridor and recreational opportunities. And really, it's also an important spot in which the cities that are part of the Arroyo Seco, the main cities that are part of the Arroyo Seco, really need to work together to come up with a mutually acceptable approach that we hope will be very nature-based and will really preserve the character of the Arroyo Seco as we move into the future. So on the map, you can see there, it begins really with San Rafael Bridge up at the top. And that's in Pasadena. Then it proceeds south about 1,000 feet from there to San Pasqual Avenue into the San Pasqual site, which is the second site of the water reuse project. And then it proceeds south from there and goes all the way down to the York Boulevard Bridge in Los Angeles. So this one spot really brings together Pasadena, South Pasadena, and Los Angeles. Los Angeles has kind of been left out of the picture here for a while, though, and has kind of been not consulted about how the project is moving ahead. So this is we'll deal with 3 different parts of the Arroyo here, or 3 different projects or parts of the project. One is San Rafael Creek. The second is the San Pasqual site further south. This is actually, I'm sorry, this is a map of West Pasadena and Los Angeles, and it shows San Rafael Creek. So it's actually a stream that begins up in the Annandale area, where the Annandale Country Club is, or almost up there to Eagle Rock in Los Angeles. And it proceeds south to Johnston Lake. And Johnston Lake is a private lake. It's pretty much the only lake in Pasadena, I think, but it has a lot of history to it. It's a very important historical spot. And then from Johnston Lake, it turns towards the Arroyo Seco, and San Rafael Creek becomes one of the largest tributaries going into the Arroyo Seco, and a relatively natural tributary still to this point. So there's only a small part of it has really been channelized, but there's some minor contamination that's coming from bacteria that the city of Pasadena wants to deal with. So this is the map to give you a sense of where it's at. And so it goes along the bottom here. It's going along, over towards the Arroyo from Johnston Lake. And let me give you another view of it. You can see here, this is a view of the watershed of San Rafael Creek. And so that's really a key part of the whole project, is how to clean up the stream, and how can it be done in a natural way, or should it be with big expensive equipment that needs to have a lot of maintenance overall, and will clog up a lot of the beautiful areas, the walking areas down by the Arroyo Seco stream itself. So here's Johnson Lake from above. This is just a Google Earth picture of Johnston Lake, and you can see from it that it's rather contaminated here with algae, which algae is generally a pretty good indicator of a serious water quality problem in a body of water like that. So coming out of Johnston Lake, the stream is a natural stream, unlined channel, and it goes all the way to the confluence with the Arroyo Seco. And that's what you see there. And in the very top right corner, you get a little piece there of the San Rafael Bridge coming across the Arroyo. And this is the channel that comes from San Rafael Creek. And it goes along La Loma and Laguna there over towards the Arroyo Seco. And it's kind of a slope, so it's pretty steep up there. And when it reaches that area right at the top of this picture, they channelized it for only about 250 feet, by which I mean it's in concrete. And in 1947, the engineers put that area in concrete. Actually, an employee of the flood control district said, well, we had money left over, so we decided to put this. So this is really, it's a wonderful opportunity here. And you can see, looking in the area, like just to the west or south of that channel, you can see that it's actually pretty verdant the way that it is. So there's a lot of habitat in there. There's a significant amount of invasive species as well. But we've always, for more than 20 years, thought that it was really a great opportunity for doing a real stream restoration there at that point. So this is San Rafael Bridge looking north, and you can see the path. I bet a lot of you have walked along that path, and there's a pedestrian bridge there that you can walk, and you can go, both ways on both sides of the channel. So really, the San Rafael Creek confluence has really been considered an ideal site for stream restoration for many years. And in Pasadena, that's, was at least since the 60s, when that area was declared a nature preserve. And then in 1984, the environmental artists Newton and Helen Harrison came forward with a very significant exhibition at Baxter Gallery at Caltech. And it was on how to restore the arroyo and the natural character of the arroyo. And then in 1988, the Cal Poly graduate student, landscape student, 606 Studio, actually developed a plan, a very visionary plan. It just makes a lot of sense to this day. And its whole goal was to really renaturalize the Arroyo Seco, and particularly what Pasadena calls the lower Arroyo. In 2003, the city of Pasadena passed the Arroyo Seco master plan, which is the master plan for the Arroyo Seco. And it says, it actually expresses disappointment that the city has not moved forward with removing large amounts of concrete in the channel in the lower Arroyo. So there was a very clear direction given in the city's master plan 22 years ago to really do something to restore the natural character of this area. In 2006, Northeast Trees, the environmental group from Northeast Los Angeles, came up with a concept plan for a natural restoration of this area that would have removed all the concrete in this area, opened up the confluence so that it'd be much wider, and have, a little bridge over the necessary area, but let the water go off into that area below there and create natural wetlands. And it would also have the impact of cleaning up the water from the stream, which probably, that might be all that it would take in order to clean up that water, would be natural wetlands. Well, Pasadena, this is the plan they're actually talking about. And you can see by looking at it that it's a much more mechanical plan. It's kind of going to industrialize this area. There's going to be a lot of pumps and pipes and pretreatment facilities and underground tanks. And then there will be an above ground, but not an artificial wetlands, not a real wetland. So it's not clear, what level of treatment's going to be taking place there, but it's clearly going to, fill up a lot of this area with industrial equipment in what is now a very natural area right by the channel. So they're going to take 30 acres of storage per storm. They estimate 4 storms a year. That'll be 120 acre feet, which, isn't an enormous amount of money, but of water, but it's a significant amount. One thing to understand about this project that's very important is that this is a dry weather flow. This is not a stormwater capture program. A lot of the Measure W programs that the county has been funding are stormwater programs, which are really designed to capture stormwater flow and to salt it away somehow for future use. This is not a stormwater project. They're going to take the dry weather flow, treat it, and some of it they'll put back into the arroyo. They're going to treat it, put it back into the river. And the primary pollutants that you can see are zinc, which they don't seem to be very worried about. They think they've already taken care of it, bacteria, and trash. So this is the area is really kind of characteristic of a lot of the Arroyo Seco. And you look at this, and it doesn't take very much vision to realize that this is an aging facility that's rapidly deteriorating. And the county flood control district has done studies that indicate that this channel lacks the capacity to really deal with the kind of flood that experts predict will be coming during the era of climate change. Flash floods, moving a lot of water through. The floods will probably be infrequent, but they'll be probably more destructive than past floods that we've seen. So that's what that channel is like. And as you can see, the construction of the material isn't really steady and all of that. So people, all of us, the county, the cities, all need to look at this and recognize that this is a serious problem for the future that needs to be taken into account. The project that the Pasadena and South Pasadena are proposing does not take that element into account. Now here, this is the area that we're talking about this evening, and we call it the ARC, the Arroyo Restoration Corridor, because of its very keen importance in terms of restoring the Arroyo Seco above this and below this. And so the ARC really, as I said earlier, extends from San Rafael Bridge down to York Boulevard Bridge. And it's a key habitat and wildlife connecting corridor. It's actually about a 3-mile stretch. So it's a significant stretch of the 12 miles of the Arroyo Seco that are in the urban plain. The Arroyo Seco has 12 miles in the mountains, 12 miles in the urban plain. And this section really links Pasadena, South Pasadena, and Los Angeles. And it's really incumbent upon those 3 agencies to work together in order to come up with mutual beneficial programs of the sort that the public likes. Generally, when this goes out to the public likes a nature-based solution. Now, here we are looking down at the San Pasqual site, which is about 900 feet south of the San Rafael site. And that's San Pascual Street coming across there. And this is kind of a really unique spot in the Arroyo because on the one side, on the right there, you see that's South Pasadena. And on the left, that's Los Angeles. So on the right is a city of South Pasadena Park. And on the left is a San Pascual Park, which is a city of Los Angeles park. And you see this very interesting mass is this wonderful little corner here of riparian stream zone habitat coming through here. And ironically, one thing you need to understand about this is that a lot of this is fed by Garfious Stream and Garfious Spring above that, which is a very historic spot in South Pasadena that Carter's probably going to talk more about. But that's why this area, it really has very fresh water coming through this area from that spring. The spring has been put into a pipe underneath the park, and it's been, like much of the streams in the Arroyo Seco, it's been living in a pipe for a long time, probably 60 or 80 years. And then at the bottom, and at the top part of this area that we always have trouble figuring out what to call it, it's a wetlands is what it really is. And the top part of it is still part of San Rafael Park, or San Pascual Park, rather, the city of LA park. And then the lower part, about the lower 2/3 of it, roughly, is in the city of South Pasadena. And the area has lush habitat in it. It does have a lot of invasive species that should be cleaned out about it. But the plan that Pasadena and South Pasadena has put together is really going to be very destructive of this area. And they're basically going to kind of wipe out most of it and start all over again, which really is going to destroy a lot of important habitat and an area that people really, really love. So, obviously getting the cities to work together for a better solution is an important part of planning for the future of the Arroyo. So this is, you can see from it, I have to admit that I'm a stream restorationist. I want to bring the stream back to the Arroyo. I want to bring fish back to the stream. I want the native trout that are in the mountains to be able to come down and swim in this area. So I look at this area and I say, wow, look at that. Look at how much space there is for coming up with solutions that will really enhance the natural character of the stream. Taking the flood channel out, the flood channel can go in this area, and that these parks should really be viewed as part of the river system. And the river should be part of the parks so that we integrate the parks and the river together. And so, we set up conditions where maybe once every 20 years, there might be some flooding into these park areas. But, we designed the parks so that they can handle that. Like Balboa Park out in the San Fernando Valley is very much that way. So it's not unheard of. But this is a spectacular area for stream restoration, as was San Rafael, the confluence there at San Rafael. Now we move a little further south here, and we move underneath the freeway. The Arroyo Seco Channel passes underneath the freeway at this point, and you can see the neighborhood of Garvanza. Is this Garvanza itself right here? We're very close to Garvanza, which is a neighborhood of Los Angeles. It was one of Los Angeles's first suburbs, and it's part of Highland Park. And as you see here, on the bottom part of the screen, the lower part of the screen, you see those tennis courts and pickleball courts and all of this sort of stuff. And then you see the golf course. Well, that's what they're going to do with some of the water that is going to be cleaned up. It's going to be cleaned up at San Rafael, and then it's going to be cleaned up again at San Pascual side, and then they're going to move it over to the golf course, and they're going to put it on the golf course. And then they're going to release the water back to the Arroyo Seco stream. And by the time they release it back to the Arroyo Seco stream, it'll be polluted again because it'll pick up a lot of the fertilizer and waste products that are coming off of the golf course and the streets in that area and all that. There's the South Pasadena Dog Park there. There's, real sources of pollution in that immediate area. Now, this little band over here, we call the island. And this band over here, this is LA. And it's really ideal for some real habitat restoration in here that would fit in and would really improve the stream conditions in this area here. So this is LA, this is South Pasadena. So, all right, moving a little south, or not south, but actually back to the San Pasquale area. The plan that South Pasadena and Pasadena devised was approved by the city councils in June of last year. And fortunately, a very sharp observer of nature and a lover of San Pasquale Park, Clara Solis, and her friends, who are all part of a very committed neighborhood that really wants to protect their precious natural stream zone down there, they filed a lawsuit, which you didn't hear anything about it. Nobody had any announcements about it. Nobody talked about it. Nobody said what the issues were. But it was basically because a lot of the industrial facilities they're going to put in for diversion and such are actually in the part of the park of that riparian zone over there that is in San Pasquale Park. And they didn't really work out the arrangements with LA. So, I mean, LA still hasn't officially bought in on this project. And LA, which is really the downstream user, gets a lot of the detriment from the project, but they don't get the benefit. So the benefit of the project is a relatively small amount of water, actually, that's going to be going over to the golf course in South Pasadena to irrigate the golf course. Now, you have to ask yourself, as we look to the future with dwindling water supplies and all of that, is that the highest priority? Is it really worth spending $10 million to irrigate the golf course in South Pasadena? And of course, South Pasadena also has plans. They have a $25 million plan to enhance the golf course. So they've got more plans in order to, upgrade their golf course. What they would say is upgrade their golf course. And the way I look at it is that, a lot of that area really should be given over to reclaiming the stream and restoring the natural values in that area. So here's Clara Solis, who was the one who spotted it and went ahead. And Clara is a wonderful neighborhood activist from Northeast Los Angeles, and she actually wrote the challenge of their previous environmental report, which was called a negative declaration. It was not a very complete report. And in settlement of that lawsuit, the city of Los Angeles had to agree to do an environmental impact report. So that's I'm sorry, Pasadena and South Pasadena had to agree to do an environmental impact report. So that's the only reason they're doing an environmental impact report, is because Clara got on the ball and made a really big difference by filing a lawsuit. So Clara says we have so many birds, and it's true. There are so many birds in that area. It's really wonderful. This is Andrew Salas, who is a big fan of this area too. He calls it Little Hahamungna. And he says that's what the Gabrielino Kish called this area. That's how significant it was to them. It was on a par with Hahamungna up by the mountains. And so this is a sacred spot. And his group of the Gabrielino Band of Mission Indians, Kish Nation, was not, they really weren't consulted, as they should have been legally, AB 52. They really should have been consulted formally as to, is this site sacred to them? What changes can be made? How can they protect anything that might be of value, cultural value, or burial sites? Or, apparently this was the site of a massacre that occurred in the 1840s, or 1830s rather. And so Chief Andrew Salas is a very big fan of this area too, and they need to be fully involved in the project. So another reality that a lot of people aren't aware of is that there's a lot of trout in the Arroyo Seco. Most people don't believe that. They think that, 15 or 20 years ago, the trout were wiped out by the station fire. But no, last summer, the California Department of Fish and Wildlife they did a survey, and they issued a report, and this is their news release in which they talk about finding at least 4,000 trout. These are native trout, which are genetically the same as steelhead, the endangered steelhead, the endangered southern steelhead, which is just a wonderful treasure that hasn't been able to live in the Arroyo Seco for over 100 years because of the dams and all of the barriers that people have created. So this was what CDFW said, and they said, they were just really very pleased by how many trout there are in the Arroyo Seco. So we're working trying to identify barriers and invasive species and other things like that that will make it more difficult for fish in the future. Well, you know what? The facilities that South Pasadena and Pasadena want to build will make it very difficult for the trout and for restoring trout in the future. They're going to make it very difficult in a variety of ways. One is simply by taking water out of the stream. There will be less water in the stream, but also their diversion facilities and their treatment facilities, which are going to be right by the stream, they're not going to be passable to fish. And the stream isn't, the stream in legal sense is called a fully appropriated stream, which means there isn't any water for appropriating for new uses, such as irrigating the golf course in South Pasadena. Now, they say they've been doing it for a long time, but they haven't been, and they don't have a water right to do so. So what makes a lot more sense? Clearly, the contamination needs to be cleaned up. The invasive species need to be removed. But there's a very simple, easy way to do that, and that's really by preventing the pollution in the first place, and then finding and addressing it right at the source and going in right at the source and fixing it. So, you saw the map of San Rafael Creek, and it's about 1.5 miles long before it goes into the Arroyo Seco. And is it okay? That stream is polluted for 1.5 miles till it gets to the Arroyo Seco. And then all of a sudden, magically, they're going to put this industrial equipment in there to treat it, when the better solution would be to go find the source of the pollution in the beginning and get rid of it and use nature-based methods, such as they're supposed to do with the county's program anyway. These are pictures of the pollution from the San Pasqual stable, which is just above San Pasqual Street there. And this is pollution flowing off of that horse facility, full of horse crap, flowing into the river. And, that's a big part of the pollution problem in the Arroyo Seco. But the plan that they're proposing doesn't really address that. So there's lots of reasons why they should move ahead with nature-based solutions, because they're really going to enhance the habitat. They're going to and restore the habitat. They're going to improve water quality, and it's going to contribute to the well-being of communities in the future. So this is really critical to think about these nature-based solutions in the Arroyo Seco, because they're going to be so important in dealing with promoting biodiversity in our region and for dealing with climate change. And they should include protections for fish and wildlife and, enhanced habitat. So there's a lot of reasons wrong with what's wrong with the Arroyo Seco water reuse program. And, this is a long litany here of, 15 or 20 different things that are wrong with the project as it goes. And we're going to try to get a lot of these incorporated into the environmental impact report so that they'll be studying these issues so they can't do it. So they need to prove if they have a water right, for instance. They need to deal with the fact that this is a fully appropriated stream. They need to deal with that fact that this is not a nature-based solution, as all of these county programs are supposed to be. This program is funded by the county, $9 million, put aside for nature-based solutions. And so they need to deal with the fact that they're going to create new barriers for fish and wildlife in this neighborhood. So I want to give you a little bit of inspiration here. This is a design that was done by a very famous landscape architect by the name of Mia Lair. And she did this, actually, she did it way back in 2006 for the LA River Revitalization Program. This is her vision of what the confluence of the Arroyo Seco should look like. And if you know what the Arroyo Seco looks like, it's a sad, sad channel that's barren on both sides and all of this. And look at the lovely habitat, she proposes restoring and, to do it in a way that will add flood protection as well. So it will actually enhance flood protection. So this is just a wonderful conceptual drawing of the kind of thing that we should be trying to work for in the Arroyo Seco. Now, what are we doing in order to make a difference in the future? Well, the LA County Flood Control District has announced that they're going to revive the program that they've been going on in the past. They want to revive the program called the Arroyo Seco Ecosystem Restoration Program, which is just dramatically different in its motivation from what Pasadena and South Pasadena are proposing. And the other thing that we're doing is we're reviving CASO, the Council of Arroyo Seco Organizations. And we hope that if you're associated with organizations, your organization will join up, and we'll have periodic meetings, maybe every 2 or 3 months or something like that, for organizations working together to improve the Arroyo Seco and to strategize and show some political power as well. So with that, I want to let you know that you can get more information at our website, which is very simple to remember, www.arroyoseco.org. Sign up for our newsletter for updates. And with that, we'll move ahead. Our next speaker is Barbara Eisenstein, who is the woman who has pulled together the wonderful South Pasadena Nature Park. And if you haven't been there, you really need to go there. It's a wonderful example of the kind of restoration that should be popping up all along the Arroyo Seco. And Barbara's been working at it for, almost 20 years. And it's just a great example of community involvement in protecting the stream and protecting the wildlife. Barbara?
Thank you, Tim. So my internet has been up and down. So in order to prepare for this meeting, I made a video, and we're not sure that the audio of the video is going to work, but hopefully it will. So what I'm going to do here is I want to take you all for a little walk in San Pasqual, in the San Pasqual site. It's not San Pasqual Park, it's the site, that beautiful little vegetated area that Tim pointed out. Because I was there just, I go down there not too often, but I was there last week, and it's a really interesting site. So let's see if we can do that, and hopefully the sound will work as well. So what do I have to do here, Tim? I have never done this before. I do share, or
I think, yeah, now you do share. I think you've been authorized to do share, I hope.
send request. Request has been sent.
Okay, so allow, all right.
Okay.
Did it open up for you?
What am I saying? What's supposed to open?
Tim, we're still seeing the steward's deck.
All right, now could you try again?
Share. Ah, there we go. So yeah, let's try this and see if that works. Share. So are you seeing this? I don't know exactly.
Yes, we are.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is open it up wide, and let me go.
I'm sorry to say, there's some trick here to get the audio going, and I'm not sure what the trick is, frankly.
All right, you know what? Can you hear me?
Sure, just narrate it.
Okay, I'm going to try, I hope. Okay, let's go back to the beginning. And I'm just going to start it and stop it so you guys can hear me. It looks to me as though you're only getting a portion of my screen. We'll work with that. Is that correct? Is like South Pass Nature Park just says Nature Park? Is that right? Is that what you see?
Yes.
Yeah, see, you're only getting a portion of my screen as well. I'm going to make this smaller. Maybe I can make this work. I don't know. Sorry about this, folks. All right, we're just going to go with it. Can you see this well enough for me to just pass on through? Are we good?
Yes.
Okay. So in the first one, like what Tim showed, I wanted to show you the area that I'm talking about. Down here is the South Pass Nature Park. And if you haven't been there, it's looking really, really great right now. I'm very proud of it. And we go up, here's the driving range. And over here is the golf course. moving on up. And this is the area we're talking about. Right here is the San Pasqual Park. And as Tim mentioned, right in here is the area that is part of the San Pasqual site of the water reuse project. So we're going to take a little walk. We're going to enter from the top here and go on in there. Yep. So let's see. So there you are. Okay. Okay, so here we are, just at on the ground looking in. This is where we had that safe San Pasqual cleanup, and if you walk right down into here, past this car, right down into here, it's a little distracting because I'm hearing the voices here.
Do you see the microphone down there in the lower left corner there? Could you
Yeah,
click on that? That might make a difference. I'm not sure.
I just clicked on that. It says record voiceover now. So that would allow me to record because you're
Oh,
looking
I
at
see.
my
Okay, sorry.
iMovie
Right.
thingy. Okay, not perfect. So anyway, here we are, and we're entering in the place that I just told you about, and it's quite pretty. So right over here is this little sort of edge, little lip, and there's water coming in. And I didn't realize that a lot of it may be coming from Garfield Spring and not elsewhere. So you can see that. Yeah, we got two oaks on there. And I mean, it barely looks like Southern California. Um, the water is very clear. I took these pictures last week. Isn't that amazing the way this looks? So I want to point out in here that there is ailanthus in here, a ton of it. And there was a fire recently. I spoke with the fire chief, and there have been many fires down here. And it just seems to be promoting the growth of ailanthus and other weeds. So right in here, you can see that right here is some elderberry. So there's lots of native stuff in there as well. You see this oak right here? It's really nice. So these are the palms, and they're charred because of this fire. And, they're very invasive and they should go, but they do provide some habitat at this time, but they need to go. And we're walking along here, and I'm listening to the audio in this thing, and I mentioned that I could have hit my head there. So what I want to point out here is this is a large old sycamore, and it burned either in this fire or an earlier fire. And right in here, it's sprouting from the roots, and you can really see this plant. Now, yeah, there's no way for me to know. I'm not an expert in this, whether that sycamore is coming back or whether it's been so damaged that there's no chance of it coming back. But it's certainly making an effort in there. Yeah. You can see the water looks pretty good. There's a lot of garbage down there. But we have some mallards swimming upstream in there. Doesn't that water look great? And I've been told there are tadpoles and frogs and all kinds of things in there. And here what I'm doing is I'm panning around. You see, here are some more of these burnt palms. Here's a chain link fence that was in there and is still sitting in there, kind of a mess. Yeah, there were cattails in the back. But this is not a good look. But if you take a look right here, we've got ourselves a nice blue heron. And in spite of what it looks like in that area, that heron is really enjoying it. So, yeah, so as I was saying in my little video, which by the way, I'm going to put up on YouTube so you can actually hear my narration rather than me speaking over myself, which is kind of disorienting. But this is the point. This is really the point, is that when I show you what the project is going to look like, it's going to change things dramatically, and it's going to be difficult for animals to use it in the same way. So there's a lot of weeds, but there's a lot of habitat in there. I don't know what he's pecking at there. Okay. So this was taken from the mitigated negative declaration, and these are construction and demolition notes. And you can't read them. I recognize that unless you get up really close. But what they intend to do is they intend to level out. They're going to smooth this out and make it, instead of the water running, let's see, the water is running sort of in this little channel in here. Instead of that, they're going to open this whole thing up. And that means they're going to grade that land. That means that all of the plants that are in there and the soil is going to be heavily disturbed. So again, Tim showed a picture of this. You can see they've got pipes coming in. There are bridges going over it, pipes going out. This is the San Pascual Drive. Yeah, it's not clear to me what exactly we're seeing in this picture. Is it going to be wet all the time, or what's that actually going to look like? Is there enough water for it to be wet all the time? I really don't know. But Tim showed you a picture. I think it was of the San Rafael site. Here it is at the San Pascual site. Same deal. Channel diversion, a valve, pre-treatment. This is where I told you it's flattened out and leveled out. This is a little bridge that goes across it, another filtration unit, and then the water goes back into the Arroyo Seco channel. Again, let's get this here. In this picture, here's their rendering of the whole thing. And, it looks lovely from their picture. This is where we are now. This is what we have now. And there is no disputing that there are a lot of weeds in there that really need to go to make it good habitat. But this whole area is going to be cleared and adjust. Let me get to the next one. Sorry, this didn't work a little better, but in this picture, you can see here's the water. All of these trees along the edge are existing trees that will remain, and all of the vegetation here goes. It's gone. It's out of there. So that's kind of disturbing. And I also find this to be disturbing. It looks really lovely, and I want to believe it. So this is their vision, and these are the two places that they are drawing their pictures from. And they've got very wide decomposed granite paths. And I very much would love to see more paths running through this area. But it's a landscape. It's a maintained, it's not habitat. It's more of a landscape. And so that's a really, interesting thing. But one has to come back to reality here. Oops, let's see if I can make this work. This is a little piece of land. Now, in the agreement that they wrote up, South Pasadena was going to take care of all the maintenance in the San Pasqual area. And I need to point this out. This is the recreational path that runs along the driving range and the nature park. That path was planted with Mediterranean plants and a few natives in there as well. It was put in around 2019. It is maintained, if you want to call it that, by Parkwood, which is the company that South Pasadena contracts with to take care of our parks. They have been using herbicide. They're not supposed to be using herbicide, but I don't know how else you get this kind of death going on. And they also have been shredding, and I don't know what they're doing in here, but this is the reality of what our city has been doing with regard to maintenance. Our city has no experience whatsoever in maintaining habitat. Oops, let me go a little further. So I find that to be very disturbing because I don't know how it's going to manage it. This is what it looks like right now. And it's wild. It needs to be cleaned up. But, this is castor bean here. But we've got elderberry in here. We've got holly leaf cherry. We've got toyon. We've got oaks and sycamores and just all this wonderful stuff in there. And it's growing in a tangle. And the tangle is habitat. That is what habitat is. Here's another picture with an old sycamore. And finally, here's a Southern California black walnut in bloom that I took the picture there. Now I end with a picture here that you might say, why did she end with this picture? If I can make this happen. There we go. Why did I end with this particular picture? So this is where the water goes back into the Arroyo Seco currently. And I ended with this picture because this is important. These are toyons. They're growing from seed. And I think if you removed the weeds from this area and took just a little bit of care of this area, it's full of garbage, it's full of homeless encampments, it's full of burn sites. You just took a little bit of care. These things, their seeds are all in there. If you scrape it bare, you lose all of that. You lose all of the microorganisms that are, in there as well. So we need to get in there. We need to clean it up. We need to make it accessible to people as being nature, parkland that is nature and natural, and not this idea that we're going to scrape the whole thing clean and we're going to plant native plants. And somehow the fact that you plant native plants, and I don't even care whether those native plants are propagated from local natives. If you plant them like that, we've been working for 20 years in the nature park. It is not a simple matter to get heavily disturbed soil to become anything but weeds. You have to be on top of it with many hours of work. And I don't see evidence from our city that we have the resources to do that. So I am going to stop sharing. Can we stop sharing now?
Yes.
That was so disorienting with a voice in the background. Sorry, folks. So how do I do that, Tim? Do I do anything? There.
Okay, now. Okay. So.
Oh, stop share right
Right,
there.
right.
It's been sitting in front of my nose the whole time.
Okay.
Sorry, guys.
Very good. Very good. Thank you, Barbara. Thank you for that wonderful tour of the area. It makes it real.
Everybody needs to go down there and take a look and see what's there because it's a pretty exciting place.
Okay. Now, we want to make sure that people have an opportunity to ask questions and such. So if you have questions, what I'd ask you to do is to use the chat function where it says chat, go in and put your question there and we'll try to get to you. We have two more speakers that we'd like to introduce who are very, have great insights as well. The first is Carter Mullen Carey, who is an aspiring hydrologist and an avid fisherman who just graduated, I believe, from South Pasadena High School. Isn't that correct? Did you graduate?
Yes, that's correct.
Oh, good.
Yeah, correct.
Congratulations on graduating. So,
Thank
all
you.
right,
Thank you.
go for it, Carter. It's yours.
Hey, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here with you all tonight. As Tim mentioned, I'm an aspiring hydrologist, also landscape architect, but most importantly, I'm a big advocate for native rainbow trout and southern steelhead. And as Tim mentioned earlier, the Arroyo Arc or Arroyo Restoration Corridor is super important. It's where Pasadena, South Pasadena, and Los Angeles meet surrounding the Arroyo, and it's really honestly just a game changer for the future, the natural future of the Arroyo Seco. Um, Tim and I, we really want to see steelhead. We want to see them having the ability to travel from their reaches in the mountains all the way down to the ocean. And what it's going to take to get that is, well, first off, obviously the removal of the concrete and fish barriers, but also we have to manage this area of the arroyo better. Um, the Arroyo Seco water reuse project is pretty much exactly the opposite of what we need to see. Um, as Barbara mentioned, the San Pasqual site is really lovely. And along with that, we have the nature park, we have the San Rafael site. And these areas both have a bunch of habitat, a lot of native species, and immense potential for habitat and stream zone restoration. Um, and that's really what we need to see. You know, the chief of the Gabrielino, Andrew Salas, as he said, that San Pasqual site is Little Haha Magna. And comparing this area to just a few miles upstream, Haha Magna, it's very, very similar. Obviously, we have the San Pasqual and Garvanza neighborhood in there, which does pose some flood risk potential, but nothing is impossible. We can build levees and canals and ditches to manage flood risks. And, it's really up to us as a community and as people who care about the arroyo. We have to make sure that the cities are taking all of these factors into account. And as of this moment, they're pretty much disregarding all of them. And lastly, I'd like to give you all an opportunity to help out. So Tim and I, we created, and also with the help of Barbara from the Nature Park, we created an Arroyo Arc BioBlitz. And a BioBlitz is conducted through iNaturalist, which I'm sure some of you are familiar with. And it's basically a concentrated ecological survey. And we've concentrated it in the Arroyo Arc, which, as Tim mentioned earlier, is the Arroyo Restoration Corridor, spanning from the San Rafael Avenue Bridge down to the York Boulevard Bridge. And this is a great tool for anyone who ever spends time in the Arroyo, specifically that region. You can just scan anything on your phone, a plant, an animal, a really nice tree, and the app will identify it and upload it to our project, which is collecting observations of native species from this Arroyo Restoration Corridor. So if that's something that's interesting to you, please check out our website, www.arroyoseco.org. And thank you.
Carter, good job. Thank you. And coming up now, the famous Mark Forbes, who representing the Save San Pasqual crowd that has played such an important role in this and really needs to be looked upon as a full partner in shaping the future of the Arroyo Seco. Mark, it's yours. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Tim. I really appreciate it. And I want to thank everybody that's here tonight that is concerned about the Arroyo Seco and wants to see a real difference made for a more natural restoration. Tim, if I could do a screen share,
Sure.
that would be great.
Go for it.
There we go. Okay, so just full disclosure, Tim has given me 8 minutes to speak because I think he knows that I could go on for a long, long time to talk about the issues here, and there are many. I'm speaking on behalf of the Save San Pasqual Park group tonight, and as Tim mentioned, we're opposed to the Arroyo Seco water reuse project. This is a joint project by Pasadena and South Pasadena with the stated intent to capture water and clean water from the Arroyo Seco. So just to be clear, we're not against cleaning water. Cleaning water, capturing water is a good thing, but there are better ways to do it. And Personally, I'm not an engineer, but just looking at the project from the very beginning, since last year, I realized that this was not a good project. So Tim has talked a lot about where this project is. But one of the things that really brought me into becoming very active to save the San Pasqual Park area was that a portion of this land is in Los Angeles. And Pasadena and South Pasadena have asked Recreations and Parks to lease them the Los Angeles portion of this land in perpetuity. Although South Pasadena is only required to maintain the land for 30 years. So as Barbara pointed out, the South Pasadena portion has not been well taken care of. And that's another concern of ours with this project. So this gives you a better idea. You know, we've been talking about this San Pasqual area. This is the baseball field over here. This is San Pasqual Drive right here. And so this is the dividing line between Los Angeles and South Pasadena. So
I'm not seeing any of that. I'm seeing stewards of the Arroyo Seco. Is anybody else seeing?
Oh, I'm sorry.
There
Are
we
you
go.
not?
There we
There
go.
we go.
Okay,
Sorry.
great. So again, this is the San Pasqual area that we're talking about. This is the South Pasadena baseball field. Up here on the upper left is San Pasqual Road, and here's the dividing line. So this is about 4 acres, and it's probably about a half acre, half acre that is in actually Los Angeles. And so that is one of the reasons that I got involved, because giving away parkland is against the Los Angeles Charter. So that was one of the items in the lawsuit that Clara put forward, one of the CEQA issues that was raised. So this gives you, a couple pictures that we took as well. We feel that this is just such a beautiful area. I was actually down there today in the creek. There was our very shy turtle. There were small fish in there. We saw our mallard family down there, as well as a number of birds. So again, it's a riparian habitat with a number of wildlife sightings, and they use this, as their habitat. This is where they live. This is where they feed. So this gives you an idea of the greater area. This is San Rafael up here, San Pasqual, and this gives you a larger picture where the river flows down from the upper Cajamonga to the central Arroyo, and all the way down, which gives you a perspective of the San Rafael site and the San Pasqual site that they want to use for the Arroyo Seco water reuse project. One of the issues that we have is moving that water to the South Pasadena golf course. So here in the picture on the left side, you can see the San Pasqual site in red, and then here is the golf course at the bottom. So one of the things that we added in the lawsuit is there was poor community outreach. Pasadena and South Pasadena are trying to move this through very quietly. In fact, there was a meeting a week ago where they did not allow public comments. They just presented it and said, hey, we're going to be starting this EIR. They did not mention that they had to start the EIR because they had been sued, because we felt that the mitigated negative declaration was not sufficient, and said that that there was no environmental impact, or there was very little that could be mitigated. We disagreed, and that really sparked Clara's lawsuit and our activism in this. So I won't go into more of those details. This deck, by the way, can be downloaded from savesanpasqualpark.com, as well as email links, some of the outreach that we've done, including a news report that we did with KCAL News. So you can take a look at that. This area is a very historic area, and we know this. If you look a little bit below here, this is a historic hitching post. We've talked a little bit about the Gabriel N. O'Quiche. and the importance of this area to them. Additionally, as I mentioned, the city charter literally says that parkland cannot be given away. So that was a big point of contention of ours. So this gives you an idea. This is that historic hitching post, which would be destroyed if they built this project, and just a little bit away from this in South Pasadena is a historic hitching post, which has a beautiful plaque that you'll note says this is a cultural heritage landmark, which is to be preserved and maintained as a natural park. So we feel a little bit of a disparity that this in Los Angeles wouldn't be preserved, but it would be in Pasadena. So the environmental impact on this project is great. One of the biggest issues is the amount of water that they would be taking, and I'll get to that in a minute. Additionally, this is a huge tree canopy. In fact, it's something like 30 to 40% more trees than any of the surrounding area. The plans intend to remove 82% of the existing trees, including about 36 or 40 protected oaks, depending on which report you look at. And this is going to decimate that entire ecosystem. As somebody who's on the call tonight, John Vangelisti, mentioned to me as we were looking at this, he said, as we were looking at the canopy, he said, if this is destroyed, it will never look like this in our lifetime. And that really struck me. It won't. They do have a replanting plan at a 3-to-1, but all of the Mexican palms will be taken out. They noted those as invasive. However, in Pasadena, all of the palm trees there are not considered invasive. We know that the palms are important for supporting birds, bats, as well as other animals. And we also know that it's going to take a minimum of 20 years for these trees to mature, probably more like 50 years to bring back the benefits of a mature canopy. And if you go in this area, and I loved Barbara's walkthrough, because when I was down there today, it was about 75 degrees out, and it's a good 10 degrees cooler in that community. If you go down there on a hot day, it is a beautiful respite. It's quiet. You sitting by a very cool, bubbling brook. It's really wonderful. So one of our concerns is, this is going to destroy this delicate riparian habitat that's been established and is currently flourishing. Additionally, the construction of this is probably going to take 2 years, so no mitigation is going to support the wildlife that is currently using this area to survive. Additionally, it's going to impact community health. This area is a huge heat sink. It filters pollutants from the 110 freeway. If this is cut down, we're also going to have a lot more noise pollution in the area, as well as light pollution from the baseball fields. So this is really a wonderful area that really benefits not only the South Pasadena community, but also, of course, the Los Angeles community. So going into some specific details, and again, on savesanpasqualpark.com, we have links to the original plans from Pasadena. So you can take a look at those for yourself. All of these numbers have been taken from their reports. If they build this project, they intend to capture 175 million gallons of water. And that's just based on an average year of rainfall. One of our questions is, what if you don't have an average year of rainfall and we're in a drought? Are you going to capture that same amount of water? 60% of that water, about 100 million gallons of water, will be held or diverted. So out of that 175, they're going to keep 100 million gallons. South Pasadena is going to hold on to 85 million gallons of water. This is what's going to be built out in what they refer to as a wetlands. I would prefer to refer to it as a reservoir. It's going to be a large pool of water that's going to be fenced in, so you won't have any more direct access for water. And animals, especially four-legged animals, will not have easy access to that water either. And then 20 million gallons, or about 10% of that water, is planned to be diverted to the South Pasadena Golf Course. There are no plans to divert any of this water to Los Angeles. So as Tim mentioned previously, one of our concerns is that the diversion of that water is not permitted. We have not been able to get any kind of actual documentation that says that South Pasadena is allowed to divert that water from the state of California. They continue to refer to the county gave them the rights to do this in the 70s, but as some of you know, they are not allowed to do that without permission from the California Water Board. And in our analysis, we have not been able to find any documentation, and the Water Board, in fact, has been very unresponsive to be able to show us any documentation to that respect. So this gives you a perspective of the amount of trees that would be destroyed in this area. The red bubbles here are protected trees. These are the sycamores, these are the oaks. The yellow bubbles are non-protective trees. But what this really doesn't show well is, what that tree canopy would look like. We're talking about 82% of the trees that would be removed in this area. And we know that when trees are removed to that degree, it's very questionable whether the trees that remain will have a good chance of survival. So, our big concern is, that this construction process is going to destroy the ecosystem, which is a food source for multiple species. We're going to lose a huge amount of biodiversity in this area. There's no way that they can mitigate the impact of this during nesting seasons. And one of our members did a biological report a few weeks ago with a number of different bird species. Alejandro has actually taken these pictures. You'll notice orioles, bluebirds, Cooper hawks. So, this is a wonderful habitat for all of these birds, as well as other animals. So, what we're saying is that it's really impossible to declare that this project has no significant impact. Fortunately, Claire's lawsuit has slowed this down and called into question the mitigated negative declaration, and forcing them to do a proper environmental impact report. We know that there's going to be a significant impact to the environment, to wildlife, to public use, to water use, to indigenous history, archaeology, as well as neighborhood health and well-being. And, again, the impact of this construction is going to be considerable. So at this point, what I'd like to do is encourage you to get involved. If you go to savesanpasqualpark.com, you can email us. We definitely can use volunteers, and no matter what you can do, we would love to work with you. Additionally, what can really make a difference here is emailing or writing to South Pasadena of what you would like to see studied in the environmental impact report. This is a large list, and this is something that we will have on the website. But again, the removal of all the trees, the loss of the parkland, we will not be able to access this area in the same way. The reservoir will be fenced in. You will be able to walk around it, but you will not be able to access the water. Removing the water source is going to impact the wildlife. The habitat is important to the entire wildlife corridor. and removing this is going to have a huge impact upstream and downstream. Again, this is a heat island. This area reduces the temperature quite literally of the area. And if you go down there, and I highly encourage you to just take a stroll down there, it is really wonderful. We were down there with some students a few weeks ago, and one of them exclaimed, "I can't believe we're in Los Angeles." And it's really true. It's really a beautiful area. Again, the Gabriel and Okish Nation must be consulted in this. There have been a number of attempts to do this, and their outreach has been poor. As Tim has mentioned, we need to talk about nature-based solutions. We need to be looking at how we can reintroduce fish like the trout, which is indicative of a healthy water system. If we can introduce something like trout, that shows that the water is clean. We have to take a look at the contamination. We have to start looking at stopping that at the source. Coliform bacteria does not just get into the Arroyo Seco by itself. There's either open sewer lines or it's coming from the horse stables. We know somebody that lives in the area who says every time it rains, the sewers get backed up, and his cul-de-sac is filled with horse manure. So we know that's a huge problem. There are ways to stop that at the source, and it should be stopped. We need to know, how they're going to, if they're going to be diverting this water, what are they going to be doing in times of drought? We need to be looking at, as Barbara mentioned, and Tim mentioned, the golf course. Why are they not capturing more water themselves if they're spending $25 million to do this? So all of these things, this is just a large list, and you can see we also said, add your own comments here. So what I'd like to do is highly encourage you to put in your own comments to Pasadena. That list that I just showed you has already been submitted, so they do have that. But, with all of our conversation, I really encourage you and would love you to think about what you can write to Pasadena and say what you would like to see studied in the environmental impact report. Let me open this up. Oh, I'm at full screen here. So you need to write or to email Christina Mond, who is at the City of Pasadena Department of Public Works, by June 30th. They have extended that deadline to June 30th, and let them know what you would like to see them study in the environmental impact report. And you can either mail her at this address, or you can actually send an email. And you should expect to receive a receipt from Christina that says that she has received this. If you do not receive a receipt that says that she has received this, send it again and let her know that you would like to see that she has received this. We have seen a number of instances where comments have been submitted and suggested that have just disappeared, have not been acknowledged. So again, I highly encourage you to reach out to Christina at this address, and we will put this on the website as well as our listing of what we would like to see studied. But I would encourage you to think outside the box. One of the big things to take a look at is a no build option, or an option that does not divert water. If they're going to clean water, let's take a look at a natural restoration, natural ways of cleaning that water, removing the concrete, putting trees in there, putting boulders that will slow that water flow down. So there are a number of things that we know can be done that, as Tim would say, does not include pipes and plumbing that would make a much, much better project for everybody involved. So again, please take a look at savesanpasqualpark.com. Sign up for our emails. We send out emails all the time. If you'd like to volunteer, we welcome anything that you can do. We're especially looking for people in public relations or social media. That would be immensely helpful. So again, you can always reach out to us at savesanpasqualpark@gmail.com or simply access the link at savesanpasqualpark.com. Tim, I may have gone over a few minutes. I apologize. But, I want to thank you for this time and letting us speak. And we are all at the Save San Pasqual Park group, really behind you and again for a natural restoration. And we are really against the Arroyo Seco water reuse project. So thank you for the time.
All right.
I really appreciate this.
Thanks so much, Mark. That was terrific. Now we have a few minutes left, and I'm sure people have questions. And if you'd like to ask a question, put your question in the chat box, and we'll try to respond to the most urgent questions. Well, I guess we satisfied everybody, it's like. No, I think everybody's probably pretty tired at this time. So, all right, going once, going twice.
Wait a second. I'm typing.
All right. Oh, you got a
Okay.
question?
Yes, I do.
Okay, good.
I go.
I think, Sophia, do you have a question? You raised your hand.
Yes, hi everyone. I'm for those of you who I don't know or I'm not familiar with. I'm the assistant to Chief Salas, and on the call today as well is Richard, who is our tribal biologist. And so I just have a quick question regarding the scoping meeting. Has it occurred or will it be occurring on the June 30th? Is this?
They already had their formal scoping meeting. It was very disappointing. It occurred on March 28th. And they made a 20-minute presentation, and then they wouldn't let anyone ask any questions or make public comments. So it was really very frustrating. You could go to the back and try to grab their ear or whatever, but so the formal scoping meeting has already been accomplished, but they will take written comments, only written comments, all the way up until the 30th of this month.
Well, I'm sorry, this is Ricardo speaking. I work with Sophie. Quick question. I just took a quick look at the California Natural Diversity Database for there, and I found like a half a dozen protected species at the federal and state level. So my question to you is, do you have a good idea of what the environmental triggers are for agency participation in this process?
Well, that's a very good question, and they do solicit input from agencies. So they received the same notice that some of us received with regard to the notice of preparation, it's called, in which they announced that they're going to do an environmental impact report. And so
Yes.
they have solicited they have sent them an email. Now that doesn't mean that the agencies are going to respond or they're going to give good, tough comments to the city of Pasadena and South Pasadena. So that's one thing to do. If you're in touch with any of these agencies like California Department of Fish and Wildlife, the Regional Water Quality Control Board, the County of Los Angeles Public Works Department, Flood Control Division, if you're in touch with any of those agencies and representative of those agencies, encourage them to make comments that will, be in keeping with a nature-based approach to restoring the arroyo. Because all of those agencies also have a similar interest, at least rhetorically, in restoring the natural character of the arroyo. So that's a good tactic and a good tool for people to do. And a lot of times what happens is agencies that we wish would be there and would make strong statements, they don't even make statements.
You,
So,
yeah, you're right. It has to be a very proactive approach. You need to drag the agencies kicking and screaming sometimes, but if that's what's necessary, I
That's
think
right.
that Keish and for me personally, I would enjoy doing that.
The Sierra Club, Audubon, Tree People, Northeast Trees, any organization that you might have a leg in, we will need their letter of support.
Certainly, I'd be happy to help in any way I can, but I think really you've hit the nail on the head there. We need the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. And you need to talk to the water board, because if that really is and I look, and it is an FASS, um, it, I think that's a done deal for the
You would
water
think so, and the fact that they can't prove that they have a permit. Now, I did talk to somebody pretty high up in the Department of Fish and Wildlife, and he was very receptive, and he agreed that this would be a good opportunity for them to accomplish some of their goals in terms of naturalizing the stream. And there's an interesting thing that's gone on in particularly 2 years ago when there was a lot of water up at Devil's Gate Dam, because there were trout swimming behind the dam at that time. And when the county started releasing water into the Arroyo stream up there, just out, from Haamungna,
Sure.
we believe that there were native rainbow trout that actually got into the stream, as far south as Pasadena. So that's one thing we're going to be looking for in the future, and trying to do, environmental DNA analysis and things like that to
Sure.
prove that there are fish in the stream below Devil's Gate Dam, because that'll totally change the way that the Department of Fish and Wildlife looks at how they manage, what issues they
Sure.
raise.
Yeah, well, whatever agency is approving or reviewing the project that's not necessarily a regulatory agency has an obligation to consult with the regulatory agency. So, yeah, I'd be happy to make those connections or help build those bridges, and to review the document as well. I have 35 years of experience doing
Oh, that's
environmental
fantastic.
projects, so I'd be,
That
I'm looking
would
forward
be
to it.
We'd be very grateful for your help, Ricardo.
absolutely. And Ricardo, I just thank you. That would be phenomenal. I also wanted to add that we did speak with Fish and Wildlife last year. Yale, when was that? About August or September? Sorry, you're muted, but yeah, we spoke to someone at Fish and Wildlife, and because at that point it was a mitigated negative declaration, they told us point blank that they do not have the staff to review that, and said that they only had enough to start to look at environmental impact reports. So now that they're required to do an environmental impact report, we'll definitely be going back to Fish and Wildlife and say, you need to take a look at this now. So,
Sure.
That is definitely something that we will be doing. We feel that that Pasadena is probably going to push the EIR through as fast as possible, but still that's going to take some time. But with your help, and everybody involved, we're definitely going to pull out all the stops to talk to all regulatory agencies, including the State Water Board, the Regional Water Quality Control Board, Fish and Wildlife, Recreations and Parks, our local politicians. So we're really trying to reach out to anybody that will support opposition to this project.
If I can add, the meeting I think was around November, and we had two meetings, and they were quite disappointing because none of the people that spoke to us had any capacity to handle a project of such a magnitude, and they confirmed that the way Pasadena worked by passing it under the radar is how they would do it during holidays and such. And they were not consulted. They were not reached to California, even though they are mentioned in the M&D multiple times, because this is an area under their jurisdiction. And also, the reason why they could not comment until now, because the M&D did not record any objection from the community, with the exception of 2 people. So only the AIR. They encouraged us to do the AIR.
Let me say 2 things about the scoping process. One is that in the scoping process, they have to, and this is what's different about an environmental impact report more than a negative declaration. They have to look at alternatives. They have to fully analyze alternatives to what they've proposed. So that's very important. The other thing is that when we make comments during the scoping process, we're contributing to the groundwork of legal documents that's necessary if we have to sue them in the future. So you build your case, you have to build your case through the administrative process. So if you put in concerns there that they don't deal with in the future, then they can be part of a lawsuit with regard to the environmental impact report. Although to be realistic, EIRs are under fire in Sacramento and are being gutted by the legislature even at this point. So, but we need to still press on and use them as tools.
If CEQA is banned or thrown out the window by the governor, how will it affect EIRs?
Well, they won't have EIRs. That's what CEQA is,
Yeah.
EIRs. So what's likely is that they'll gut it in some way. So
Mhm.
they'll eliminate appeal rights, or they'll make shorter timeframes for comments and other sorts of things like that. So probably what they're likely to do is to come up with all sorts of ways to undercut the power of CEQA. And those of us who have been around for a long time know that CEQA is not very powerful. It is not fully protective of environmental values by any means at all. And it's generally frustrating. So even when you win, you wonder if you won or not.
Hey, Tim, I wanted to bring up a question that Barbara had, which says, I have no idea how an EIR goes. Who decides which of the proposed projects goes ahead?
In this case, it'll be the city of Pasadena working with South Pasadena. Pasadena is the lead, so the city government will make the decision, and it varies from city to city how it goes, because in some cases, even a full environmental impact report can sometimes be approved just by a department head in a city and not by the city council. So that's one thing that we need to do with all 3 of these cities, is to make sure that the city council is forced to deal with the issue. And they have to do it out in public.
Let's say best case scenario, LA says we don't want it. Does it have any weight?
Legally, the decision is for the lead sponsor, and in this case, they're including South Pasadena too. So LA can raise quite a ruckus and make it very difficult for them to proceed, but LA itself can't kill the project. Which was foolish on their part to leave out LA in the beginning. They really should have been including LA all along. And I think if they had, it would have been a somewhat better project. All right. Well, there's lots of talk that we could go on for a long time here talking about all of these important issues, but I just like to, urge everyone to, as Mark and Carter and Barbara all said, we want to encourage you to get involved directly and making a difference here. We have, to the end of the month for scoping comments. The EIR is likely to take 6 months to a year, probably, maybe sometimes longer than that. But we really need to start going to organizations, and some of them have been mentioned here, the Sierra Club. One of the things that we're fighting, and let's be honest about this, they've already got $9 million pledged from the county for this project. They have spent several $1,000,000 already kind of doing the planning on this project. So we're fighting that momentum. you know, that they've got a lot of consulting reports and they've talked to a lot of people and they wined and dined people and they whispered in the ear of people. They haven't done very much publicly, but they've done a lot to influence influential people. And so we need to keep that in mind, is that we're fighting an uphill battle here. All right. Well, with that happy thought, I'd like to thank everyone for coming tonight, and let's stay in touch. And, you know, I'm so glad that you registered because it gives us the ability to communicate with you in the future. And I hope that you'll stay in touch with us. And you've seen some of the key players here, so stay in touch with us, and let's win this one. We can win it. It's not too late, but we really need it. The future of not just the San Pasqual and San Rafael area matters, but what really matters is the overall health of the Arroyo Seco itself and the plants and wildlife and people that depend upon it. So thank you for coming tonight, and hang in there.